Habit number 6 for taking more interesting photos is to look for more interesting perspectives. Look for ways of taking a photo of your subject that isn't your standard normal way you see things. One of the ways, again, we make things more interesting is to make them unique, rare. So we see everything like this. This is how we see the world. We look at it like this, and we can see it. So if you want to create an interesting view, a different perspective, change that. One of the easiest ways to do this is to get lower or get taller. That will change your eye level and change the perspective on your subject. If you want to make something look really tall and imposing, don't just take a picture of a building or a tree from the side, but get right up close to it and look straight up. That'll make it look much taller. Or even with a person. If you want to make a person feel really tall, get really low. If you want to feel like you're engaged with your subject, especially if it has eyes, get to its eye level. So you want to have the camera at the same level as the eye, not above or below. And that will create more interest because you're engaged with your subject better. One of the least used tools in photography, I think, is our feet. We don't move around very much sometimes. And I also catch myself doing this. I'll stand in one spot and not move around. By moving around, by using our feet, we change what we're seeing. And by changing what we're seeing, it may be in a more unique and interesting way. So therefore, the photo is going to be more unique and interesting. One of my favorite suggestions for taking more interesting photos is to, once you take a photo like this, so you've got your phone or your camera, and you do the shot that everybody else has, is to then take the photo from really down low or go really tall with the photo. Put the camera in a very high position, or even just a little bit lower. It's amazing how just lowering the camera a little bit or raising it a little bit will change the perspective on the subject and make it more interesting. There are 300 million photos every day, at least, uploaded to Facebook. So that means there's a lot of photos taken every day. And one of the ways we can make our photos stand out is to make them more interesting. And one easy way to make your photos more interesting is to take it from a different perspective than you see the world from every day. So lower, higher, around the side, around the back. Find a place where people don't usually go. That is a more interesting photo. So habit number 6, look for more interesting perspectives.
Thought I'd show you some more practical examples of using interesting perspectives to take more interesting photos. There's a sculpture in the downtown Bellevue Arts Museum that this is the photo most people might take, just looking straight at it with lots of clutter in the background. Not a very interesting photo. It's hard to see what the picture is of. But if you walk around and change your perspective so that you're no longer looking at a clutter, but you've moved around to the back and you position this against the sky. So you end up with a photo like this. On a gray sky morning, it's really easy to make the sky and look white, which is what I've done here with just a nice, simple center-aligned composition, but it's much different than that first photo. Came back about an hour and a half later, and there was some blue in the sky with some clouds, so I took one more picture using rule of thirds here for, again, a little bit different look. So lots of different things, just move around. This bench down the way a little bit in Bellevue, looking through it, I want to experiment some more with this. I'm not quite done with this photo, but this is a fun sketch to experiment and play around with looking through the hoops to see people. Outside this parking structure was this this mirror that gives kind of a funhouse effect. There's a little selfie moment in here, but just something a little different. You walk right by it normally, but camera gives you permission to do something different. Just like here, looking straight up at this really tall building in downtown Bellevue with a few clouds in the blue sky above it, makes it kind of abstract and just lines and perspective. So there's that. One of my heroes is my son David as a photographer. He's shown me so much about taking more interesting photos by changing perspective. He did his senior project a few years ago where he did photography for his senior project. And I watched him and eventually just started taking pictures of him taking pictures because he was doing so many interesting things with where he was putting the camera. He was looking up and getting close to things. He was laying on the ground and not afraid to find that perspective that made the photo more interesting. Whether the subject was interesting or not, all of a sudden the photo becomes really, really interesting because the camera's in a place where your eye doesn't usually go. So that's one really good way to make more interesting photos is with habit number 6, put your camera in an interesting place and create an interesting perspective.